Well, okay. Let's get started on chapter 7, which describes call by reference, call by value, and call by name, which are the main mechanisms for evaluating procedures that are parameterized. So we're adding a parameterized procedures and the declaration. Okay, so there's going to be two parts to any time you add some new kind of thing. There's going to be a declaration and some kind of invocation, in which case it's a call. And so here we use proc as the keyword to indicate we're defining a new procedure. P is the name of the procedure. X is called the formal parameter. Now we need to be able to distinguish between the name used in the definition and the actual argument or the actual parameter used when we call. So we call the one in the definition the formal parameter. And S is the body of the procedure. This is the code that defines what the procedure does. Now, to invoke a procedure, we call it. So it looks like, in the code, it looks like call PY. And P is the name of a previously declared procedure. Like what would happen if we call some procedure which we haven't declared? Well, there's not going to be any, when we try to look up in the environment what the meaning of P is, we're going to find nothing there, and so the program's going to crash. That is something that we could do type checking to eliminate that possibility, but we haven't talked about type checking. And then Y is the actual parameter or the argument. We use both interchangeably. It's the argument that's used to call P, or it's the actual parameter for the call to P. Now then, what is Y? So it turns out we get to decide what kind of thing Y is. So what does that mean? Well, it means which syntactic class does Y come from? And this depends on what the calling mechanism used to bind the actual parameter to the formal parameter is. So what is that about? What am I talking about there? Well, I'm basically saying, look, you see a call, and so you've seen this and you've seen this. And the other information that you have at the point when you see this is in Huttel's case is an ENVV and an ENVP. So this is the variable environment and this is the proc environment. And down here also we have an ENVV, an ENVP, and it's going to depend on the store. On the store, STOR, for the evaluation. Now the question is, do we use these environments to evaluate P? Or do we use these environments to evaluate P? And what we saw last time was if we use the ones that were in place at the time the declaration is made, we get nicer semantics. We get static scoping rules. So we need to include those into the environment with P, and we're going to need to include the other information, like what's the name of the formal parameter and what's the code for the body. So those are the things that get included when we see this. Down here we say, well, what do we use? We use those of these, and we use these environments, and we use this store, and we evaluate Y in terms of the environment in the store that's in place at the time of the call. So there's three main And then there's other delicacies in this thing, or things to consider. So there's three main styles, mechanisms of calling, of passing parameters. There's call by reference, which essentially passes a pointer. There's call by value, which is essentially the actual parameter or the argument is an A expression, and you evaluate it, and then you use that value. And then there's call by name, which is an A. Also, the actual parameter is an A expression, and you substitute that into the code in S to get a new program, which you then evaluate. So these are different ways of handling parameters, and they're different. You could write the same code in call by reference and call by value and write the same looking call, and the two of them will evaluate to be different. And you get the same thing with call by value and call by name. They could be completely different. And I guess I haven't thought about how you could get, you certainly can get differences here, and you certainly could get differences here. So there's examples of programs which distinguish, the behavior of those programs would distinguish what kind of calling mechanism is implemented in your language. Some languages implement multiple ones, and then you have to add an extra tag to indicate what you mean. So very briefly, okay, call by reference, also called CBR. So we call it CBR for call by reference, CBV for call by value, CBN for call by name. And in the call by reference, the argument is a variable, and it's not an A expression, it's a variable name, so it's just a string. And in the body of S, that argument may appear on both the left and right sides of an assignment statement. And that's not always the case with with call by value or call by name. So what about call by value? In call by value, the argument is an A expression, which is evaluated to become an integer at the time the call is first encountered. So that means you use the environments that are in place and the store that's in place at the time the call is encountered, and you evaluate Y, and then that integer, whatever it happens to be, say V, K, whatever, is used whenever the formal parameter is mentioned in the body of S, in the body of the procedure. So then you evaluate the body of the procedure, and whenever you see the formal parameter, you use the integer value K. Now, call by name is a bit different. It's a kind of what we say lazy evaluation mechanism. See, like in call by value, we evaluate the argument. We evaluate the argument or the actual parameter immediately. In call by name, what we do is the actual parameter Y is an A expression, and wherever the formal parameter is mentioned in the body S, we replace that mention, we replace X by Y itself without changing it, just the A expression Y, But we have to do it very carefully because we can end up with essentially just a macro system like you have in C or C++, where you're not taking into account naming, you just substitute in, and that's all. And that's a problem. So if you really want to do it right, you have to do it very carefully to avoid capturing bound variables. So we're going to talk about call by reference. We're going to talk about call by value. We're going to talk about call by name. And so I think I'm going to break it up and put those into separate videos so that I can upload more easily, and then you can come back and find what you want